I've been playing Elden Ring for a while, and until now, I never really bothered to try to understand the lore, even though I always knew it was there. The game on the outside is so impressive on its own, and then when you realize there is an entire lore that can explain every single location and item you observe while playing your game, you're just like, what? The buildings in Landale are filled with dead bodies? The jars are filled with dead bodies? The furnace golems are filled with dead bodies? Okay, why do all these examples have to do with dead bodies? When we look at the Steam description for Elden Ring, it says, a multi-layered story told in fragments. They really weren't kidding when they said this. 400 hours in, and I feel that I've only started to scratch the surface of Elden Ring lore. And after learning a few more scraps of information about Marika in the shadow of the Erdtree, I was like, okay, I have to put together some sort of timeline in order to even try to wrap my head around the single most important character of the game. Just as a little disclaimer, I have no idea what I'm talking about. This is my first lore video, and these are just conclusions that I've come to, and they are totally subject to change. This video is definitely open to criticism, but please don't come for me if I get something completely wrong, which will probably happen. I'm going to attempt to streamline key information and events about Marika's life we know so far, and then offer some personal analysis at the end. And so, without further ado, here is my working timeline of Marika, according to how I've interpreted this highly fragmented story. It all started in the shaman village in the realm of Shadow. This is where a Newman girl named Marika was born. I had some trouble understanding her background because she is a shaman and a Newman and an Empyrean. I've gathered that Newman is her ethnicity, shaman is her occupation or faction, and Empyrean is a rare trait that she happens to have. This trait enables her to become a god if she becomes the vessel of the Elden Ring, which was basically a set of rules that governed life as all beings knew it. And spoiler alert, this is exactly what ends up happening, but we'll get to that in a bit. The shaman faction was oppressed by the Hornsent, the rulers of the realm of Shadow. These Hornsent maimed and tortured the shamans, slicing them up and stuffing them into jars as some sort of freaky ritual. This piece of lore can be visually observed in Bonnie Village, where you find things like the Tooth Whip and the Greater Potentate NPC. When you look at the description for the caterpillar mask these Greater Potentates wear, it says it's used to ward off thoughts of impurity, doubt, temptation, and other wickednesses one is vulnerable to while absorbed in divine ritual. The Phantom in Bonnie Village says, life were you accorded for this alone. So basically, the Hornsent thought that the shaman's only reason for being born was to be killed in a quote-unquote divine ritual and stuffed into a jar. Pretty messed up. Marika escaped her fate as a jar entered and made her way to the Gate of Divinity, where she ascended to godhood thanks to her Empyrean trait. She was chosen by the Two Fingers to serve the Greater Will as a vassal god, and was bestowed her shadow Malekith, and thus began Marika's journey in the lands between. At some point, Marika plucked the death rune from the Elden Ring and gave it to her shadow Malekith for safekeeping. This action removed the concept of death from the lands between. I'll expand a little on why I think she did this later on. This action served as the foundation of the cult-like religion of the Golden Order, and Marika became Queen Marika the Eternal. Inevitably, the ancient factions that existed in the lands between before the Golden Order and the Erdtree showed resistance to this new order, and Queen Marika had to assert power over them in order to establish the Order's legitimacy. This included the sorcerer faction of Liurnia, the fire giants, and the dragons. To do this, she marries a powerful warrior named Horalu, who then became Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. With their power combined, they killed every single fire giant except one, as we all know too well. Queen Marika and Godfrey had 3 children, known as the Golden Lineage. The first was Godwyn the Golden. Godwyn led a counterattack at the royal city of Landale when it was attacked by dragons. Morgoth and Mohg were both born as a cursed omen with horns, a trait reminiscent of the primordial crucible, which was basically the source of all life and power in the lands between before the Greater Will. Because of this, horns were something that was deemed impure by the Greater Will, and thus Queen Marika was forced to abandon them underground in the sewers of Landale. While Queen Marika waged war to establish her new Age of the Erdtree, she dispatched a champion named Ratigan to lead her armies twice against Renala's House of the Moon in Liurnia, both battles of which ended in a draw. After this, Ratigan repented by cleansing himself with celestial dew and swearing his love to Renala. Okay, I know this video is about Marika, but stay with me, I promise these characters are important. Ratigan and Renala end up having 3 children together, Rani, Radon, and Rykard. At some point, probably around the time she was forced to abandon her first set of twins, Morgott and Mohg, Marika began to question the motivations behind the Greater Will and the Order itself. She revoked the grace from Godfrey and sent him and his warrior clan to a land far away, becoming the first Tarnished. After Godfrey was stripped of grace and banished, Ratigan left Renala and returned to Leyndell to marry Marika and claim the title of Second Elden Lord. Rani and her siblings were raised to demigod status by their new stepmother. Rani, given her Empyrean status, was even chosen by the Two Fingers as Marika's potential successor, and was granted a shadow named Blide. Together, Marika and Ratigan had the twins Malenia and Miquella, both born with afflictions, Malenia with scarlet rot and Miquella with nascency, which basically means he'll never fully mature into an adult. After playing the DLC, it's become clear that Marika is also the mother to Mesmer, and Mesmer's soundtrack has several similarities to Ratigan's, which I explored in my last upload. In addition to this, the description for Mesmer's kindling says that his younger sister also bore a vision of fire, leading many to believe that his sister is Melina, which means Melina is also the child of Marika and Ratigan? I'm going to speculate more about this in a bit, but for now, the running theory is that Mesmer and Melina are also children of Marika and Ratigan, and were likely born sometime after Malenia and Miquella. Although Mesmer was confined to the realm of shadow, he was instructed by Marika to purge the horn scent, and he willingly did so for her, even after she ceased contact with him. While Ratigan and Queen Marika were busy making babies and ruling the land, Renala of the Moon slipped into a depression, and the sorcerers of Raya Lucaria Academy and the Knights of the Carian royal family fell into a civil war. Upon seeing this, and knowing her fate as a puppet for the Two Fingers, Rani hatched a plan to escape it. She stole a fragment from the Rune of Death and imbued it into the blades of Numen assassins close to Marika herself. In an effort to bring forth a new age, she then instructed the assassins to kill Godwyn the Golden, Marika's firstborn and only non-afflicted child, on the Night of Black Knives. At the same time, Rani killed herself in body, transferring her spirit to the body of her mentor the Snow Witch and dissolving her Empyrean status. Godwyn's murder was the catalyst for the Shattering. With her firstborn dead, the rest of her children cursed or afflicted, and no faith in the Greater Will remaining, Marika had had enough. This is likely when she severed all ties from Mesmer and the Land of Shadow was hidden under the Shadow Tree to conceal all evidence of the Purge. Marika then shattered the Elden Ring, but Ratigan wanted to repair it, to no avail. This angered the Greater Will, and as punishment, they were bound together inside the Erdtree. The great runes of the Elden Ring were inherited by Marika's demigod children, but they turned against one another and lost the grace of the Greater Will. The whole premise of the game is to retrieve all of the runes, repair the Elden Ring, and become the next Elden Lord over the lands between. This explains the state of the world in which the Tarnished start showing back up. At some point, Tarnished began returning to the lands between, guided by Grace and the Two Fingers, looking to find a new Elden Lord and re-establish the Golden Order to its former glory. But notably, it's Melina, who we've come to understand is the daughter of Marika, who discovers us and leads us to burn the Erdtree. Could this be Marika's influence? You decide. The end. Unless. And that's about it for the timeline. You know, short little bedtime story, but that concludes this portion of the video. Now we're entering speculation territory, and we have some pretty compelling questions to go over. Why did Marika pluck the Rune of Death from the Elden Ring anyway? I think the Greater Will convinced her of doing this so that they could be like, look at how great the Golden Order is. When we're in charge, nothing can really die. But the truth is, things do die. They are dying. They're just being returned to the Erd Tree to be reincarnated. As the law of regression says, all things go back to their roots. So I kind of interpret them being like, actually, everything returns to the Erd Tree and becomes new life, so death doesn't technically exist. She also might have plucked the death runes so that her nor her demigod children could be slain. Next, I want to address the idea that Marika and Ratigan are the same person. We've known that Ratigan is Marika, but in my opinion, I think that Marika and Ratigan were separate individuals at first. We know that Marika wanted to shatter the Elden Ring, but Ratigan wanted to repair it. I think the best way to explain my theory is that there was a struggle between them fighting over the Elden Ring, and when the Greater Will discovered this, they punished both of them, enmeshing the two of them together inside the Erd Tree. And where do Messmer and Melina fit into the picture? I'm pretty convinced Marika and Ratigan are the parents of Messmer and Melina. I'm just not sure where on the timeline I should put them. I was kind of excited at the idea of them also being a set of twins, which would have made them the third set of twins Marika had fallen pregnant with, and I wanted to speculate into that. We know that Melina was born at the foot of the Erd Tree and that she is the younger sister. But you can still be the younger sibling in a pair of twins, and I don't think it impossible for Messmer to have been born at the Erd Tree as well. Another theory could be that she first gave birth to Messmer in the Realm of Shadow, perhaps in an effort to escape an affliction. This also might have been the point at which she returned to Shaman Village to cut her braid and plant the minor Erd Tree. But Messmer was born with the curse of a serpent anyway, which is also found blasphemous by the Greater Will, and thus he was confined to the Realm of Shadow. So then, maybe, after being weary of having to cast off all of her children, Marika later gave birth to Melina at the foot of the Erd Tree, which could have been her way of asking the Greater Will to allow her to be born with no affliction. And she was, kinda. But in return, her fate was sealed. At some point, her body was burned and she became a spirit, aimlessly wandering the lands between with Torrent, with very little idea of who she or her mother was, but still being drawn towards the Erd Tree. Whether she realized her purpose given to her by Queen Marika or had an innate calling is unknown, and we might not ever know. The nature of Elden Ring is a story comprised of fragments, and we are left to fill in the gaps. Here are my final thoughts. I think people try to take what little they know about Marika and try to outright judge whether she's good or evil. But the truth is, she's neither. To quote BoJack Horseman, one of my favorite shows ever, "There's no such thing as bad guys or good guys. We're all just guys who do good stuff sometimes and bad stuff sometimes. And all we can do is try to do less bad stuff and more good stuff. But you're never going to be good because you're not bad." Marika is an individual, dare I say, just a girl, with complex thoughts and feelings about the cards the world has dealt her. Like, you know, a normal person, if they were a god, I guess. I think she tried to be the best god that she could be, and I think she was led by the Greater Will to believe that ridding the world of death was a good thing. But her firstborn soul perished anyway, and to add insult to injury, he never died a proper death, so his still living body transformed into this unrecognizable eldritch horror at the roots of the Erd Tree and continues to spread deathroot to this day, and was at the hand of her own people, all orchestrated by her stepdaughter, who also basically killed herself too. So yeah, if I were Marika, I'd be a little mad too. If there's anyone to blame here, I think it should be Ranni, since she took it upon herself to murder her stepbrother in an effort to escape her own fate and basically caused the Shattering, aka the world, to fall into disarray. Hot take, but I'm on Team Marika, and I think this meme I found summarizes the way I feel about these characters. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!